We talked to them about time, tempo, and score. Time, tempo, and score. Those are the three most important things that I want all guards to think about. And when you're talking to your guards, you're communicating with your guards, it's very important that they understand what you want out of the basketball game. So how do you take it off the blackboard and make it come to life out on the floor? How do you take it off the blackboard and make it come to life out on the floor? And that's a whole level of communication that I find to be very interesting when you're talking to your point guard. I've had a unique experience coaching in the NBA, now coaching in college. But I'll give you some of my NBA experiences. My first coaching job with the Indiana Pacers, my two point guards, one of them was a guy by the name of Jamal Tinsley, and the other one was Jamison Brewer. So when we talk about communication, how do you communicate with your guards, and how do you get them to basically implement the things you want out on the floor? Communication again is a big key because there are different types of dialects, as I learned. Tinsley spoke a totally different language than I had heard before, and Jamison Brewer, when I was coaching him, he was from Atlanta, Tinsley was from New York, but Jamison Brewer had this language that he spoke from Atlanta, from Georgia. Does anybody speak it? I can't remember right. But anyway, I don't know how to talk that way, so to speak. So when it came down to communicating what I wanted done out on the floor, Jamison and I had a very difficult time communicating with each other because I couldn't understand some of the things that he was saying to me. So we had to break it down in terms of basketball talk. So when we talk basketball talk, what are we talking about in terms of communication with the guards? Time, tempo, and score. Who are my guards over here? I think two of them out. Step out. First thing I talk to my guards about are the four passing lanes. What are the four passing lanes? As a defender, you're being guarded, right? The four passing lanes actually guarded. Here are the four passing lanes. Step in. Down to the post. We take the ball to the side. Four passing lanes. One here. One here. One here. Down. Okay. Now, if you're Magic Johnson, you have a good passing lane, and that's over the top of the head. So if you play against a smaller defender, as Magic had the opportunity to do most of the time, he was able to go this pass over the top of the head, and he never brought the post player off the post. So when we talk about entry passes into the post with our guards, okay? If I'm guarding you, and you take this ball and you throw a lob pass up in the air, okay? The post player who's defending the post, he's able to push this guy off. And now he's getting the ball outside of the scoring area. So we like to tell our guards, in passing it to the post, the most important thing is not to pull that guy off the post. So we're going to pass it like here. And John Stockton is probably the best at doing it. You go back and watch any tapes of Stockton playing. He ain't come along, they probably had the best 1-2 punch in the NBA in terms of passing it to the post. Stockton would always win the ball over your right shoulder or your left shoulder. And if you get up and you crowd him, he had a crossover and took it, and he put his elbow right on your shoulder and delivered the basketball, and he never brought it on up the post. Okay. Big fella, you appreciate that, right? So again, the defensive player on the post, it gives him the advantage that stay to push that player off. Okay? So big guys that be trying to fight for position, they fight for position. When they fight for position, if the guard pulls that big off the post, 9 times out of 10, that big is forced into the mid post area where he has to take a difficult shot. And we as coaches, we like to tell our big guys, get them off the block, get them off the block. So again, you got time, tempo, and score that you want to communicate to the guards. And if you're better at communicating than I am, and you got guards that understand what you're saying, then you won't have a difficult time being able to understand time, tempo, and score. Now, when we talk about the tempo of the game, that point guard, his job is to control the tempo of the game. Do you want to play fast? Do you want to play slow? How do you want to play? Some teams like to speed the game up, some teams like to slow the game down. That guard, his job is to make sure that he understands how fast you want to play during the course of the game. And how does he control the game? Again, ball out. FAU has this really fast little guard, and we still haven't figured out how to guard because it kills us every game. But we like to try to control the tempo of the game as best we can. So, ball comes out of bounds, enter into the guard. We like to put a little pressure on to slow the game down. So when you're playing against a good guard, FAU has a little rating. When playing against a good guard, you want to control the tempo, slow the game down a little bit, make sure your defense gets set. Now, if your defense doesn't get set, these guards have a chance, they have the opportunity to get the ball on the floor, break the defense down, and get other people's shots. So I think baskets to me like to add a little pressure to stop the long outlet pass and control tempo a little bit. Now, when we get back to communication, point guard responsibility on the defensive side of the ball, okay, you got to be communicating with your teammates. You got to remind them that we're in a pressure situation after playing baskets. Sometimes your teammates forget, right? They don't always remember. How do you communicate? Some people communicate through language, some people communicate through numbers, but it's important that you as a coach have great communication with this guard. He's able to articulate and communicate your message throughout the course of the game. Now, so that's what we mean by controlling the tempo on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, how do you control tempo? We control tempo by going to the foul line. We control tempo by getting stops. We also control tempo by rebounding. Those are the 3 ways we like to control tempo. And those are the 3 ways that we try to control tempo by getting to the foul line. If you don't get to the foul line, then the game's going to be up and down. The game's going to be up and down. But if you can get to the foul line, you can control tempo, you can get your defense set. That point guard responsibility is how many times have we going up and down the court without scoring? Or how many times have we going up and down the court without getting to the foul line? Do I need to call a timeout to make sure that you understand that we need to get to the foul line? So that guard's responsibility is he's not on the floor to control the tempo. If we want to get to the foul line, we're going to penetrate the basketball, or we got to get to the big fella. Because 9 times out of 10, when we get to the big fella, he's going to get you a good shot, or he's going to get to the foul line. So those are the ways that the guard should be thinking when we're talking about tempo, offensive side and the defensive side. Okay, time of day. What's a good shot? What's a bad shot? You as a coach, you got to define what is a good shot and a bad shot for your team. It used to be easy to define that because we didn't have this line that we played with called the 3-point line. It used to be that this line was so far out that was a bad shot. So in the fast break, when I played, I used to play, that was a horrible shot. 3-on-2, we had to get a layup. 3-on-2 now, 3-point shot. Some coaches say that's a good shot. Sometimes I say that's a good shot depending on who's shooting. If I got the right guy shooting it, it's a good shot. I got the wrong guy shooting it, it's a bad shot. But since you're not playing that guard, I have to understand who gets the shot. Who gets the shot when, where, and how. When, where, and how. Time, tempo, and score. So you and that point guard, you gotta be on the same page. You gotta be communicating. Your communication with that point guard is more important than your communication with any other person on the team. And if you can't communicate with your point guard, then you're gonna have trouble winning games. If you can't communicate with your point guard, you're gonna have trouble winning games. So my first year I take you back to Indiana, I had to communicate with my point guards. I didn't understand them, they didn't understand me. There was a language barrier, which some of you will face at some point in time in your careers. You will face a language barrier in your play. You may be in the same skin color, you may be in the same culture, you may be in the same heritage, but you're going to face a language barrier. How do you find a way to communicate with that player? When you give him or her a scouting order, it may not translate. So how do they learn? Some people are visual learners. So we have to watch video. So we do a lot of video. We do a lot of video work with our point guards at Indiana when I was there. Then give them a scouting order and say, hey, bring this to life. So we had to do video work. It took me half the season to understand that I can't put them in a classroom setting and expect them to learn. Because some of them have actually really failed miserably in the classroom. But they're geniuses on the basketball. So in a classroom setting, which has been intimidating to them for most of their lives, they had a very difficult time relating to me or understanding me, just as you did when I first started talking. Because I wasn't making any sense to you. And you were saying, I don't know about this. So when we talk about language, we talk about communication. That point guard, you gotta understand what he's thinking, how he thinks, and how he learns. The way he learns. So I was all stood up as a coach. Because I had my players in classroom settings with the pen and the pencil and the desk, not knowing that triggers some old memories from high school where they had this teacher that they didn't like me. So I had to take them out of the classroom setting. And everything that I had to teach had to be on the floor. But we were always taught, and we see on television and everything else, we got the video, guys are sitting there, it makes us look good. But traditionally, my players had failed miserably in the classroom. Not that they were young. It's just how we teach. So it made me a better teacher, it made me a better educator. So I had to bring my guards out on the floor, and every time I wanted to get a message across to them or teach them a basketball lesson, I couldn't do it with a scouting floor. And then I realized something else. Their capacity to remember. Their memorization skills blew me away. Because I could say one thing and they would remember it for 2 months. Coach, at this point in time in the game, he said, I'm supposed to go to the big fella. I went to the big fella because it was 9:36 on the clock. And it was 9:36 on the clock. I went to the big fella and there was, we were playing the Atlanta Hawks 2 weeks ago and such and such was guard and we said that was good. I said, I don't remember that. Yeah, but that's how you talk to me, coach. So communication, time to the score. Any questions? So, four passing lanes, time to the score. And from that, you can get into your offense. You can get into anything that you need to talk about with those guards. The last thing I'll leave you with, after question and answers, is this. Your most trusted player on your team, the most trusted player on your team is your point guard. Whether you realize it or not, you can love your center, love the big fella, you can love the great shooter who comes off the screen and puts it in the hole. But the guy you trust the most, the person you will trust the most, and the team you need to trust the most, is the guy, stand up, and you throw the ball, come out on the floor. Every time they take it out of bounds, they hand it to you, point guard, and they all say, I trust that he's going to do the right thing. You as the coach, you trust that he's going to do the right thing. The fans in the stands, they trust that he's going to do the right thing. And if there's great trust in this point guard, then your team is going to play well. If you have to take the ball out of bounds and give it to this point guard, and you're not feeling that good about what he's going to do, and everybody understands when he gets you go, oh. And you as a coach is on the sideline saying, and as we run it up the court, I'm coming up the court as a big guy, I like to tell you, my favorite player, if I could have been one, I could have been the leader, then Kareem or Shaq. Because they were just, that's right. But the big fella coming up the court, and he said, man, I don't even know where I'm running this dude, they gonna throw me the ball. I'm gonna set the screen for John, but I don't know what he's gonna do. Point guard got the ball, and what you say? My turn all the time. So you coming down, you shaking, you doing your thing, right? If that point guard is not steady, your team is not steady. If that point guard is not steady, you're not steady. And for those of you who are married, when you go home at night, your wife or your girlfriend is saying to you, why are you playing him? Why you being that guy in the game? Why you keep giving it to him? You got to find a way to get trust in that point guard. If you get trust in communication, then you got a chance to execute a game plan. I don't care how much film you watch. I don't care how late you stay up. I don't care how hard you work. I don't care how many sprints you run your team up and down, how great a shape they're in. you don't trust that point guard, and that point guard can take it off the blackboard and make it come to life, then you have no shot at winning. And the only thing you can depend on is luck. And the reason why is because you cannot execute a game plan without that point guard taking it off the blackboard and making it come to life out of it. Learn to communicate with your players, whether it be written, visual, text. Find a way to communicate with your players, not the way that you like to learn, but the way that he or she likes to learn. That's what makes a good coach. Good coaches are great communicators. And great communicators can communicate in any language. And it doesn't always have to be English. Find a way to communicate. Any questions?
Coach, as a player and as a coach now, how are you able to balance when your point guard is probably your best offensive option, your best scorer, but also has to carry out the duties of sharing the wealth, getting everybody involved?
I had three great coaches in my life, and every single coach that I've had has made it to the Hall of Fame. Gene Pinkerton, my high school coach, Coach Knight, college coach, Chuck Davis, my pro coach. I was the best scorer on every team that I played in. However, I think I averaged, in the NBA, I think I averaged 15 to 17 shots a night. And it used to be, and times are changing right now. The way the game is being played, we're definitely in the transition period. It used to be that if you took over, 20, 22 shots a night, that wasn't a good thing. So my job was constantly drilled into me. And we say it all the time, you gotta make the other players better. If you are a great scorer, that is a luxury to have, that your point guard is the best scorer on the team. That is a super plus. I won championships because I could score. Stockton didn't win because he wasn't a great scorer. And if you are a great scorer, you can put so much pressure on the defense that you should be able to give other people easier shots. Now, as much as you trust that point guard, do you have enough faith that when he gives it up to John, when John misses that shot, you got to be like Coach Jarvis, tell the big guy, you know John's going to miss, you got to get off this attack. And, Larry Brown went to the NBA Finals with Allen Iverson. And Allen Iverson was MVP of the league, and I think he shot, was it 41%? Shot 41% from the field, was the MVP of the league. And they wanted him to miss because Philadelphia had great offensive rebounders. And that's how they scored. So your job as a coach, I would say, figure out a way that everybody can touch the basketball and become a hell of an offensive rebounding team. And then the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game, you'd be like Coach over here and say, okay, 2 guys are going to shoot now. That's you, possibly you. Those Jews were Wade, Bosh, and LeBron.
So I've been coaching for about 12 years now, and I've had a true point guard twice. So my question is, when you walk in the gym, you look left, you look right, and you don't see the point guard in the gym, what can you do? What can you say? What can you drill to turn one of those young ladies, young
grade school. And when you don't have one, depending on what's the size of the team, on defense, your point guard is the first man of defense, so you may want to play a lot of zone. Offensively, you may want to play, depending on where your scores are, the bigs inside, or if you got shooters, you may want to play some type of flex offense where everybody's kind of moving, touching the basketball. Play some high post offense where you put the ball in your best decision maker's hands. So if your best decision maker is a center, right? Portland Trailblazers coach, remember when Bill Walton, they won it in what was it, 76, 77, right? Their team, their two guards were Lionel Hollins and Johnny Davis. Neither one of them were classic point guards. Had a great coach, Jack Ramsey, who saw that Bill Walton was their best passer. Put him at the high post, put him at the low post. Every time down, he was the distributor. Gets the ball like the high post, he was the decision maker. So if you don't have a great point guard, you find the best decision maker on the team, someone that you can trust, and then you play through that person. For years, the Boston Celtics played through Larry Bird. They had Danny Ainge and Dennis Johnson, but they played through Larry Bird, and he was the decision maker.
I got one for you, Coach. What are your likes and dislikes about coaching the pros versus coaching college?
My likes and dislikes about coaching the pros in terms of college. Well, I like coaching in college because it's, there's two games. My dislike of the pros is that there's two games. No, just teasing. I would say that the college game, I love the enthusiasm and the bold imagination of the college kids. Because being in the NBA, you don't have any more big dreamers. You don't have any more radicals, so to speak. People who are afraid to buck the system. In college, every college kid on campus is pretty radical. When you talk to him or her, their dreams are huge. But what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a chemical engineer. I'm getting ready to solve the world's unemployment problem. That's what I'm working on. Every person that you meet on the college campus has huge dreams and great energy. And that energy has come back to me. When I was in the pros, I probably had that mistake because I was at the highest level. I was having success, but there were no more mountains to climb. So probably the best thing that happened to me is that I got knocked down, and now I have to try to climb again. And as crazy as it may sound, it's giving me my bravado back. It's giving me my mojo back. So that's what God is talking about me. Any other questions?
Yeah, Coach, you excel in a game that is known for its giants. You stand here about 6 feet tall. I coach a team that is about 6'1". Yeah, just like my kids. My tallest player might be 6'1" on a good day. What advice would you give them?
Basketball is a game of a little guy. And really all the rules favor small guys. When they sit and win the game, you cannot win the game. Imagine that you would have 7-foot players playing as close to the basket. So all the rules, the geometry of the court, Thank you for having me.